Mark Watts, elitefts.com. I'm here with Joe Kenn, owner of Big House Power in competitive athletic training. And Joe's here this weekend for the Elite FTS Sports Performance Training Summit. Joe, we appreciate you being here. You're going to be talking about the tier system. Talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions around the tier system, and what do you hope to accomplish this weekend with your speech?
Well, Mark, first of all, I really am honored that you and Dave invited me out to be a part of the first Sports Performance Summit hosted and sponsored by Elite FTS. And obviously, something that's true to my heart, my passion when it comes to program design, is the tier system. Mm-hmm. Over the last 12, 13 years, it's really taken off. Okay. It's very, very humbling to see how many people are utilizing it.
Oh, yeah.
Some more than others. Some have tried to hybrid it themselves, which I'm all about, making something your own. That's the only way your athletes are going to believe in what you do. If you're not able to promote it as, I believe in this wholeheartedly, and it comes from intrinsically motivating factors, not
Absolutely.
Because, oh, this guy won numerous championships, we have to train this way. So it's really cool to see that. You know, we spoke about this probably, 6 years ago when I was in here with Jim Wendler about what are some of the things that are the misconceptions of the tier system. And the truth is, part of it is what I'm not even going to talk about tomorrow, because in 90 minutes, I don't think I'll have enough time.
Sure.
We may answer some questions on it, but it's actually, out of our major points, we have 4 to 5 major points of the tier system. The one that gets the most questioning is one of the 4 points. The first 4 are all based off what it truly is: movement, exercise selection, exercise order, exercise choice. But the one misconception is the tier system is based off of a specific cycling or periodization model. That, to me, is where your creativeness and what you truly believe in as far as sets and reps is very, very unique to what you have been accustomed to, what you grew up with. Right. So for me, what I want to get through tomorrow is what athletic-based training is, which I think everybody would have a good idea. Reaffirm that to the people in the audience so that they know, hey, you're on the right path. I mean, even at this point in my career, it's always good to have somebody reassure you that, hey, you're on the right path. And I think That's what I hope to do tomorrow with coaches who utilize our system, reassure them they're on the right path and give them a better insight of what the thought process was when it all started. The biggest thing that I would say is the cycling. There are some unique things that happen in the tier system. When it was very first started, it was volume controlled per tier.
Sure, yeah.
Because of the way I was brought up at that time. Now it's more, what am I trying to develop in each tier, based off Zatsiorsky's 3 ways of raising strength: the maximal effort, dynamic effort, and repetitive effort methods. So that's a unique part in itself. What I hope to really get through tomorrow is some of the major important points of what the tier system is. And I learned this last year presenting at a seminar that I did with Mike Robertson, was I didn't emphasize enough out when I first started promoting it how important your exercise pool is to the tier system. As your exercise tier grows, your variability of movements will expand, and then that would really give you what I call, with the new term you're going to hear me start talking about, is intermixed periodization.
Sure.
Because all the models intertwine.
Yes, they do.
There's no one way to do it. So when you're looking at as your athlete's training age goes up, variability has to come into play more. How you layer exercises, some people call it, you start at, a squat, what's the regressions to get to a squat, and then what's the progressions afterward.
Sure.
These are all the things that I think need to come into play now when athletes or coaches of athletes are developing exercise pools, because the diversity is going to be so much broader than if we're just training a specific discipline.
Sure.
So I think that's my big point in 90 minutes, is to get that across. But like I told you, I always say I want to do this, and I want to make sure I get it done tomorrow, because I need to get on the grease board and get some interaction from the crowd. Absolutely. And just see how quick and real simple it is. Because in the truth, like we talked about in the same facility 6 years ago, the integrity of the tier system is the templated approach to exercise order. How you choose the exercises within, there's a lot of creativity, and it's got to be up to you and what you're accustomed to and comfortable with doing.
Making it your own.
You have to.
Yeah.
If it's not your own, it's not going to work. Right. And believe me, I don't care what age athlete you have, they can see through it. Athletes are smart.
We've talked about before about the difference between the science of coaching and the art of coaching, and I know you've talked about sometimes younger coaches get that second part, they're not up to point with that. What is some of the best advice you can give young coaches that are trying to get into professions, and what's some of the things that helped you with the longevity in this career that you have?
Well, I do think in this day and age, the amount of scientific data, the amount of textbooks that are out there are so much more of a plethora than when we started.
Yeah,
it was a different approach. Like I consider myself more a practical approach. You know, people talk about, you know, types of research. You know, my research is never going to be printed because my research is with my athletes daily. I don't have enough time to accumulate spreadsheets of data because my research is talking to athletes after every workout, right, and making those adjustments. You know, one of my pet peeves is with one of our professional journals. When we first started out, this journal was based off practicality. When you opened up this journal, you very rarely saw an article with numerous review of literature and numerous references. It was somebody speaking how I train my guys. Those days are almost done. You hardly ever see articles about the real practicality of what's going on. Sure. I want to know how this guy trains the guy, right, and what he's thinking when he's writing those programs. I mean, I can read the other research articles and decipher that for myself. So it's the practicality is sometimes, you got to remember, man, it's art and science. The science is here, but the human being, you know, Buddy Morris says, plastic and fluid. So you have to be able to create, and the law of individual differences will state, yes, you can train similar athletes at similar positions with similar movements, but then in this day and age of correctives, or before correctives, you know, the West Side model is built on improving your weaknesses.
Yes, sir.
So that's where our blitz work and your extra workouts come in. So you build this base model, and then the individualistic part of it is building through the athlete's individual needs. That's art. That's straight just watching people move. Now, do you have to have a educational background to be aware of, is it ankle, knee, or hip?
Right.
I get that, but if you yourself are a practical athlete and you're training, you understand too, because of the kinesthetic awareness, it's easier to approach an athlete and really try to express what he or she or what you think they should feel, and the feedback you can get back if you're under the bar under the same amount of stressors. It's like we were talking yesterday. I'm fortunate enough, even though I was a competitive powerlifter, that I train athletes, because for the most part, the demands and loads that they handle, very few have done it. And I can compare to that. Right. But it's like when we're talking about lifters. If my best squat is 650, I can only train a guy to a 650 squat because I don't know what the loads and demands and the training volumes and intensities are for anything above that.
Sure.
Same thing with Olympic weightlifting, or same thing with bodybuilding. But from an athletic standpoint, I know most of those movements. Whether I'm good at them or not, I know what I feel and what it should feel to someone else. So those are the things that come into it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against science. I mean, we're all here because of it. Right. And there's a lot of practical science that goes in every day when you're creating sets and rep schemes. Mm-hmm. But what I see now is also the young kids are extremely smart, way smarter than I am. They know exactly what they know, but they know what's out there now. We're not doing a good enough job of telling these young kids to study the history. Like, I can read about undulated and whatever periodization you think, but we all started with Tudor Bompas theory and methodology of training. So you need to start there. It's kind of like how we train our athletes. in the States. We go from specific to general. We got everybody doing everything. Oh, we got to buy all these
Pyramid's
coaches.
upside down.
Yeah. And it's the same thing that's happening now. We got all these kids reading this material when it should be reading here and moving up.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, I mean, for the young, here's what I'll tell you about, here's what I believe with the young strength coaches. I think I got 2 critical points. One is, don't chase. And I mean, don't chase the better job and don't chase the better money. Because if you do that, your investment's in the chase and not in the job that you have now. And that's the space of the volunteer internship, may be the most important job that you will ever have. Because that's the job that's going to create your first recommendations. So if you go in there, you know, half-assing it, because you're more worried about, oh, I just got to get this 15 weeks in at big-time university, and I'm going to go there. Believe me, you're not going there. So invest all in on the job you have. The job you have right at this point is the best job in the world. If you don't think that, you need to evaluate where you're going. You know, and then the second one is very simple. Be yourself. Don't think, oh, well, this guy trains his guys like this and he's a hype show. If you have no hype in you, you can't hype a guy. You just can't do it. You know, create your own dynamic and why the athletes want to be drawn to you. You know, we are all, you know, in this day of social media, it's good and bad. I mean, let's face it. It's got a lot of great points. I utilize it, but I know how to filter.
Right.
So the biggest thing is filtering things and just be who you are and be all in at what you want. If it's truly your passion, it shouldn't be hard to do.
Right. Well, Joe, we appreciate your time. What's the best way to get a hold of you? The website?
Yeah, but generally for me, bighousepower.com, and I'm better with email. I mean, this day and age, even with cell phones, email's easy because you always stare at your emails.
Right, right.
You know, who leaves a message? I mean, that's certain things that I try to take pride in, but I'm a poor guy on returning phone calls for whatever reason. I don't, you know, just tough. But emails generally fairly well, or forward it to an assistant who can help you with issues that I don't necessarily know. Oh, I'll give you number 2. I'll give you two for the young strength coach. Here's 3. Find a niche. It's creating jobs, especially in this analytics world. We just hired a full-time assistant whose _1 goal is GPS. GPS is the way it's going down. These analytics and omega waves and you know, hydration testing and things like that. People are doing the daily little questionnaires, as simple as that. Study that stuff, because guys like me want to hire people like that so they don't have to learn it themselves. I mean, I know I know where I stand.
Right.
And I know what my #1 responsibility is when I'm on the floor with our team. And I've got 2 really, really good assistants who are in that era of learning correctives, learning GPS. Good. That's the way you're going to stick out when there's 20,000 people applying for the same jobs.
Makes sense. All right.
Hey, I appreciate you having me out, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.